Rights in America, and he joins me now. All right, take me through the math here and the cause and effect, right? So what is it about the new voter law that was passed that is leading to this wildly elevated rate of rejections for absentee ballots?
Hey, Chris. Well, thank you for having me. So we found that mail ballot applications are 45 times more likely to be rejected than people not vote in 2021 compared to 2020. The main reason for this is that the state of Georgia dramatically shortened the window of time that people have to request absentee ballots. So before you could request it up until the Friday before Election Day, now you can request it no later than 11 days before the election. So a lot of people are requesting ballots 10, 9, 8, 7 days before the election, like they did in 2020, and they're no longer able to get a mail ballot. At the same time, even people who get mail ballots are seeing those ballots rejected at twice the rate compared to 2020 because Georgia did things like add new ID requirements, cut the number of drop boxes where you drop a ballot off, things like that. So first off, a lot of people just aren't getting ballots in the first place. But even if you're able to get a ballot, you're seeing a higher chance that your ballot is being rejected.
And do we know if those folks whose ballots are being rejected, because it's the application, right? Do we know if they show up in person anyway, or do we have any way of sort of tracking what that looks like?
We do. Only 1 in 4 people whose mail ballot applications were rejected subsequently voted in person.
Wow.
So 75% of people who are rejected are choosing not to vote. And I think that makes sense. People want to vote by mail for specific reasons. They probably can't get to the polls or they don't want to go to the polls during a pandemic. And so they're not willing to take that risk or they're not able to take that kind of risk. And what we're seeing is real world evidence of voter disenfranchisement here. I think that's the most important takeaway from this story. You have Mitch McConnell saying states aren't engaging in voter suppression. You have Joe Manchin saying that no one's going to be obstructed from voting. Well, people are being obstructed from voting. They're being obstructed from voting in record numbers. We're seeing massive increases in voter disenfranchisement, a 4,500% increase in rejected mail ballots, a 200% increase in rejected ballots. I mean, these are very large numbers, and they make me very worried about what might happen in 2022 when there's a much larger electorate turning out.
Yeah, so in terms of that, I mean, in terms of that worry as well, let's talk about the Quinnipiac polling, because I think, there's a few things going on. I mean, obviously the new law and obviously the messages coming from Republicans, but I also worry or wonder about a little bit of a sort of Heisenberg particle problem here, which is like the press coverage of the laws produce a perception that it's going to be very hard to vote, and that itself has a kind of effect on how much energy and time people have to put into it. And I wonder how much you've thought about that.
Well, this is what I do for a living, so I think about it a lot. But I mean, I think what you want to do is you need to make people aware of the laws, because if they don't understand the laws, their vote's not going to be counted. And it's very clear that we're seeing that in Georgia. At the same time, you want to show that people can successfully navigate the system. But it's clear to me from talking to people in Georgia that absent a massive voter education and voter mobilization effort, there could be a lot more voters disenfranchised in 2022. And that's not perception. That's just math at this point, based on the numbers we have in 2021. Because remember, the election we're talking about in 2021 was a municipal election in Georgia. So it had the highest educated voters, the most informed voters about the voting process, turning out in local elections. A lot of people are going to turn out in 2022 and 2024 who aren't as knowledgeable about the voting laws. They are much more likely to request mail ballots late or not put the right ID on or get tripped up somewhere else in the system. So all of those people running for office, Raphael Warnock, Stacey Abrams, all the people on the ground, Black Voters Matter, New Georgia Project, they're really going to have their work cut out for them, making sure that people know what the law is and that their votes will be counted.
That's a great point, because this is 2021 being an off-year election. It's already a very self-selected group of highly motivated voters who are voting in an election and kind of know what's up, even if they know enough to say, hey, it's a municipal election in an off year in 2021. You could see this much bigger problem. The last thing I would say, as an obvious point that you mentioned, is there was no reason to cut the window of time down. Like, that had nothing to do with anything. There was no problem that solved. There was no finding or study that said, like, well, this being open this long is producing security issues or fraud. Like, there was literally no reason. Am I right?
No, the system worked great in Georgia. The number of voters that didn't cast ballots because their applications came in too late was 0.05% of Georgians. So basically, everyone was able to vote by mail. People loved using drop boxes. Brian Kemp requested his mail ballot on the Friday before Election Day and voted via drop box on Election Day. Two things that are now illegal because of the law he signed. So, I mean, there it is for you right there. The system worked so great for Brian Kemp that he then outlawed it for the next election.
That is an incredible fact about this. We
Wake
should
up
say
if
just
you in
the numbers
Georgia.
here. Right, the last time it was 0.05.